During quarantine, healthy habits took a back seat. People largely stayed at home, sat on the couch, and stress ate. In fact, the American Psychological Association reported that 42% of adults in the U.S. gained around 29 pounds since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic. Today, as more people get back into their regular routines, some want to reignite a healthy lifestyle through diets such as keto, a low-carb, high-protein regimen. In recent years, keto has gained popularity and a persistent following. But are there any potential problems that come with these restrictions? How did the keto diet come about? Kristen Sedler is a registered dietitian in Boston and focuses on helping her clients improve their relationship with food. She says that keto actually started out as a way to help kids with epilepsy.
There's a certain reaction that happens in the brain when you have epilepsy, which causes the seizures. So if you limit all of the glucose in the body, it's not able to run off of that, which means that your brain isn't working as efficiently and it's not able to have some of those reactions. So if you're cutting off the glucose and you're cutting off the ability for your brain to have those reactions, those kids are not able to have those seizures.
While keto may help those with epilepsy, it can cause problems for the average person. Sedler notes that people on keto often feel lethargic because of the lack of sugar and carbs in their diet. Without these carbohydrates, our bodies have to break down other nutrients to generate the types of fuel our brains need.
When our brain doesn't have carbohydrates to run off of, it's not going to work as appropriately. And we're not going to be able to be as efficient. We're not going to be able to voice our thoughts as well because our brain is kind of going to be in this foggy place. Also, in terms of like if someone's on a ketogenic diet and they are an athlete or they like to move a lot, our body wants to burn carbohydrates when we're exercising. And if it doesn't have carbohydrates, it will find a way to make them. We can break down our muscle and convert that to carbohydrates.
Since keto drastically limits food groups like carbs and sugar, it's a difficult diet to follow. For those with existing limitations, it's even more of a challenge. This was the experience for college student Isabella Fiedler, who was a vegetarian when her doctor suggested she try keto. It was meant to help with her hormone imbalance after she was diagnosed with polycystic ovarian syndrome. She tried it, but ended up quitting 3 months in. The diet not only affected her energy, but also her mental health and even her bank account. Fiedler says she was spending double the amount of money on groceries during the stint.
All of it was ridiculously expensive to purchase. And as a college student, it was really hard to see normal flour that was $2 a bag, and then almond flour for the bread I wanted to bake was $8. So anything I wanted to eat that was remotely normal, if I wanted to make something that resembled a normal person's diet, cost me double the price.
In the end, Fiedler says it wasn't worth the money or effort. Meals turned from an everyday enjoyment into an inconvenience.
None of it was good. It wasn't good. It wasn't satisfactory. And I felt hungry all the time, and I didn't want to eat because I knew I wasn't going to like what I was going to eat unless it was a salad. But I also wasn't satisfied eating a salad for every meal and a couple eggs for breakfast.
However, some without restrictions have a much more positive experience. Cookbook author and food blogger Carolyn Ketchum isn't looking back after switching to keto. Ketchum got her start as a food writer by blogging about her experience creating keto-friendly recipes for treats like cupcakes, bread, pizza, and other high-carb foods.
People started paying attention, and so I started doing it more as a pursuit of I'm sharing these recipes, and then I started putting ads on my blog so I could make a little bit of money, and then it just grew and grew, and it became very popular because I got a very good feel for my ingredients, and so things worked, and I could tell people how it worked and why it worked, and that helped a lot of people in my position.
Ketchum began a keto diet after developing gestational diabetes while she was pregnant. Her doctors expected it to go away after giving birth, but instead she was diagnosed with prediabetes.
When my doctor and I agreed that I had prediabetes, I took a good look at my diet, and I had always had a pretty good diet, but it wasn't working for me. So I went low carb at first. And then over time, it evolved into keto because I noticed that I had better control over my blood sugars. the more I kept my carbs in check. That doesn't mean I don't eat any carbs, but just kept them in check and was mindful of them.
Ketchum's body does well on a keto diet, and she says it's frustrating when people assume outright that it's unhealthy for everyone. One reason Ketchum believes people have a negative view of the diet is because they don't know how to work with foods within the plan. Many people want low-carb options to taste exactly the same, but that isn't the reality. There have to be some modifications.
I've written a cookbook called The Ultimate Guide to Keto Baking, which has been extremely popular. And part of it is that, and one of the things I said to the chefs was, you know how to bake, but forget everything you knew, because these ingredients don't behave the same way as wheat flour and sugar do. So you're going to be in for some surprises if you try to treat them like wheat flour and sugar. So that was the best thing, I think, is you leave your expectations at the door. You don't expect things to behave the same way, and you also don't expect the outcome to be exactly the same. It'll be good in its own way, but it won't be exactly the same.
In addition to shifting how you cook, Ketchum says it's also important to remember that this diet doesn't always look the same for everyone.
It's a spectrum like anything. I mean, people try to differentiate low carb and keto, and they're really sort of the same. It depends on how low you keep your carbs and whether you're in ketosis or not. But keto, the diet itself really should be made up of meat, which makes it harder for a vegetarian, or animal products like eggs if you're a vegetarian, and lower carb vegetables. And really, that's the bulk of my diet. I like dessert, so I have made a living out of recreating a lot of popular favorites and making them low carb, because there are ways to do that. But dessert and bacon and eggs and those things should not be the bulk. Like, people think keto is bacon, eggs, and cheese. It's not, and it shouldn't be. It should be still a well-rounded diet. It's just a lot lower in carbs.
If you're thinking about keto, Ketchum encourages people to do their research and look at the sources behind the claims they see.
I see people calling themselves keto coaches all the time, and I'm thinking, really? What accrediting body is giving you your coaching? What nationally accredited body is saying, yes, you've done all the work and you know? So I always look for clinical studies. I've personally, when I want to back something up.
Along with research, Sedler says listeners can reach out to a registered dietitian who can map out a tailored approach based on your body and lifestyle.
A lot of dietitians are covered by your insurance or may have a sliding scale. And I would say to seek out help from a professional who can help you so that you're not jeopardizing your health.
In the end, it's important to remember that each person's body is different. What may work for one person may not work for another. Keto is just one avenue to a healthier lifestyle. To learn more about this topic and our guests, Kristen Sedler, Isabella Fiedler, and Carolyn Ketchum, visit viewpointsradio.org. This segment was written by Bridget Killian. Our executive producer is Amira Zaveri. Studio production by Jason Dickey. I'm Marty Peterson.
Viewpoints returns in just a moment.
New studies show for the first time that reducing air pollution may roll back the risk of dementia. Research reported at the Alzheimer's Association International Conference 2021 shows a clear connection between air quality and physical brain changes defining Alzheimer's disease. What's more, reducing fine particulate matter in the air is associated with slower cognitive decline and a 20% reduction in dementia risk. Claire Sexton is Director of Scientific Programs and Outreach at the Alzheimer's Association.
What's exciting is we're now seeing data showing that improving air quality may actually reduce the risk of dementia. Air pollution is bad for our brains and our overall health. This demonstrates the importance of policies and action by both governments and businesses that address air pollution.
Studies were conducted in large populations in the U.S. and France. Sexton says the findings are especially important in urban areas where higher levels of air pollution are common. Find out more at alz.org.
Cardiovascular or CV disease is the #1 killer of adults in the U.S., and millions of people trying to reduce their risk of a heart attack or stroke may unknowingly be taking medications that are not proven nor FDA approved to reduce cardiovascular risk. Let's hear from cardiologist Dr. John Osborne.
Many people are unaware that after a failed outcome study, the FDA revoked the approval of fenofibrates when added to statins, as the risk outweighed the benefits to heart health. It's important to remember that statins, along with diet and exercise, can lower cardiovascular risk by about 25 to 35%, but persistent cardiovascular risk, which can lead to a life-threatening event, may remain. I would tell anyone still being prescribed fenofibrates, such as Tricor and Trilipix, with a statin, to talk to their doctor about FDA-approved therapies for cardiovascular risk reduction.
To learn more and get clear on the facts, visit itscleartomenow.com. Again, that's itscleartomenow.com.
And that's Viewpoints for this week. Viewpoints is a production of MediaTrax Communications. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram to learn more about upcoming shows and find a library of past programs on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and Spotify. Plus, you'll always find previous segments and more information about our guests at viewpointsradio.org. Join us again next week for another edition of Viewpoints. Coming up next week.
From how you sleep, where you sleep, the background noise, the physiology of how the circadian system normally works on Earth, all of these are impacted.
The conundrum of getting good sleep in space. Then,
people were able to educate themselves. They were able to get the expertise they needed to make the case that it was in the long-term interests of El Salvador to kick out the mining companies and save their rivers.
The Environmental Heroes of El Salvador. I'm Marty Peterson.
And I'm Gary Price. These stories in depth on your public affairs magazine, Viewpoints.